So my intention with this workshop is to make a connection between the food that we eat and the body that we live in. And the place where the food that we eat becomes the body that we live in is the digestive system. So we're going to be looking and talking about the digestive system. I want to have a discussion around where things go wrong, how we end up out of balance, where does it go off. We're trying to figure out cause and effect, just like a scientist would. And this is a very yogic practice, right? So we become conscious, we become aware of what causes what and where's the energy with it and how we can tweak it. And that way we become alchemists, right? We're able to dial things up and down a little with the energy and change things. So that's my intention. The concepts that I'd like to kind of cover today are concepts from Ayurveda that you might be familiar with. So the concept of Agni, the concept of Ama. I've understood over the years of teaching this that it's nice to get information, like you definitely need information to change something. You need to have something conscious. If something's not conscious, then you don't even know about it, right? So you've got to know the stuff. But then there's the next level where it has to be like the digestive system. So that's really where I want to go with this today, is to make it like a discussion. What are your challenges around food, around eating, around digestion? So if you could just take a moment and write down maybe 2 or 3 challenges that you have, and then you can just, if you feel comfortable, share them with me.
So Nick, it's more around the food choices. I love food. So, going to restaurants, indulging in maybe sometimes rich foods.
So challenge might be around knowing what is, like, really connecting into your body and knowing what have you tried so far.
So again, I go back to the workshop. What inspired me then was experimenting with different dishes, different recipes, different ingredients. And that was fun. And I think that really motivated me to prepare foods that are healthier. And that felt really good. But then I kind of got lazy and I started eating, what was convenient, what was easy, what was things I didn't have to think about, old recipes that are easy. You don't think about it. It's like your autopilot.
Exactly. That's it. And that word lazy, it has such a negative connotation. I was talking yesterday with Chris, and she was saying to me, why is it so challenging to change?
Mm-hmm.
And this is, in a very, very basic scientific anatomical place, it goes like this. So in your brain, and the brain is the controlling system pretty much for, when we're in our bodies, like we have these, in our brain, we have these neurons. If you imagine this is a neuron, and then you have these little things that come out of the neurons called dendrites, right? And then you have something like a tail, like an axon, and then a synapse at the end. And that is your brain's wiring system, right? Now, let's say I want to have this neuron speak to this neuron, because that's what actually makes us function, right? Is when they're electrical, right? And what goes between the two are chemicals, right? We're basically just a big chemical bag. If you made your body just minerals, like you took out everything and said, what am I made of? If you were to boil down a body, there's so much sodium, so much potassium, so much, zinc, whatever. And the value of a human body in terms of mineral value is like $1.50. Right? We're that cheap. It's a humbling piece of knowledge. But anyway, right, so we're these chemicals, the brain is producing chemicals, like you've maybe heard of oxytocin or dopamine or serotonin. Like some chemicals are, like I would say, like uppers and some are downers, right? And if there's enough of a chemical being produced by one neuron, right, this one gets turned on. Right, this one gets turned on, and it opens the receptors, and then those two neurons can come together. Now you've created in what they call a neural pathway, right? Now this neural pathway, if we keep, let's say this is a behavior, right? I go to dinner at X restaurant and I always order chicken fried rice, right? So there's a chemical reaction. It feels good. I've probably had a good atmosphere around me. I'm with my friends, whatever. Now that experience has been imprinted in the brain as something good, right? The dopamine's been there and these guys are turned on and everyone's like, okay, I know when I go to Benny's restaurant there and I love the chicken fried rice, and that's now connected. So the neurons that fire together wire together, and eventually over time, just like when you learn to ride a bike, those become kind of enmeshed. And that's what makes us be able to do things automatically, like ride a bike. When you first started to ride a bike, it's all over the place, right? Because you don't have the connections aren't there, the motor coordination isn't there, it is not wired together. And in the same way, when you don't do a habit, right? I don't ride a bike for 20, 30 years or ride a horse or whatever, getting back on that thing, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? Because that over time disconnects. So with respect to, coming to eat food, being lazy is the term that we would mean is we're just using the pathways that are strong, right? We're using something that's convenient and easy and on autopilot. We use things that are almost unconscious. Why? Because it's less energy. My teacher had an ashram, and they would take the swamis that would be visiting the ashram to various villages. And it was horse and cart time in his village. So they would all pile in the cart, right? And the horse would just carry on the path. But sometimes there would be, a tree down or something that was blocking the path, something that was, if you imagine the analogy, had broken the connection. So when that happened, they would all have to pile out the cart, lift the cart, move the cart to somewhere else, and then continue on the path. That lifting the cart and moving the cart takes a lot of effort. But if that happens again and again, there's now another path being, right? And we talk about being stuck in a rut. If you imagine the cart, it literally is stuck in the rut. Why? The horse is not going to take another road if there's a road obviously in front of it, right? We're so intelligent. So kind of the curse and the blessing is we're super intelligent, we're super evolved, and we have to think about what the connections actually are and if they're serving us, because most of the time they were put in place in childhood, and we just keep rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So for the people that are working with me, we have to be cognizant of the fact that we're dealing with, years, layers and layers and layers of patterned behavior. So this work isn't easy, but if we don't do it, it just never will change. We'll just keep running the cart the same way. Habit change is a longer process. even by just thinking about doing the habit, you're already starting to create a different neural pattern, right? So the good news is up until, I don't know, like 10, 15 years ago, people just thought, you connected your neurons and that was it. Like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And now with more and more science, this neuroplasticity findings are that once you do unhook, unlink, the dendrites they're looking for something else, right? So once that actually unhooks enough, that gets loose enough, and you have, I think it's like 82 billion, that's with a B, billion neurons in your brain, and they all have like tens of thousands of dendrites. So there's so much potential to be able to do something different. It's just that it comes at a price, and the price is the energy or the lifting of the cart, right? But the first thing is you got to see there's something in the way, right? Why else would you change? So I think that's really where getting knowledge helps, right? If you can't even see that there's a tree on the road, then you're not even going to make the change. So I think this is where today, talking a little bit about digestive system, talking about optimal digestion and the science from Ayurveda starts to override the habitual things like convenience food. Convenience food is convenient because it doesn't require much energy, right? We can just throw it in a microwave. It doesn't require it doesn't require picking vegetables and chopping vegetables and going to the grocery store and waiting while the food cooks, right? It's easy, it's on autopilot. What is the one thing that can override that is our intention, right? Because our intention is saying, okay, it's like this at the minute, but I'm going to put a bigger thought around that is going to ask that this be at least loosened enough. Now, again, when you ride the bike, it takes a while. Like you fall off, you have to get back on, you fall off. Eventually, these guys find something else. And my hope is that it's something else that's a healthier habit. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. When you're more conscious of things, you're more thoughtful about things. It's your choice, right? It's your choice to do something or not do something. And then you kind of own the process.
I was listening to an Ayurvedic doctor. So she was talking about like where we are with our eating now in the 21st century in the West, and that we've become very reliant on external, on outsourcing ourselves. We've become very reliant on kind of giving too much trust to the industry. And she noticed that in the West, everything is packaged. We have everything in packages, and those packages give us numbers and ingredients on the back. And we can find ourselves often making decisions based on numbers on the backs of things, right? We become reliant. If we went back to our grandparents, they wouldn't have had food in packets. They would have been given food or bartered for food or growing their food, or even just at the grocery store, it was put into, brown bags or newspaper or something. So the first thing is that we've kind of given up our innate ability and our, I want to say, intuitive belly. And we've come to often rely on marketing, like advertising what is healthy, and the advertisers have become really good at this. Like if you start to look at packets of things, it's like healthy this, no this, yes it has that. there's now even what I would call like another layer, which is kind of emotional marketing on food as well. We have all the calorie content, the fat content, all those things, the carbohydrates, which leaves us in a place where it's a lot of confusion, right? It's a lot of confusion because everyone's shouting, it's this, it's that, this is healthy, this is not. And Ayurveda at its deep core is, and yoga, is this idea that, well, it's that you carry your own intelligence, right? You come into the world, a baby comes into this world knowing how to eat. It can use a sense of smell. It knows which mother is theirs just by its sense of smell. It knows when it's hungry, and it knows how to find its own nourishment. Babies know how to find their own nourishment. And we also know how to sleep or when to sleep. Right? A baby knows when to sleep. And we, as we become adults, we know how to procreate. Right? These are all what I call, like, in your iPhone, it comes with certain apps. Those are the apps that are built into us. So a lot of what we do, or the Beautiful Alchemy team do, is to unpick, right? To unlearn. Which is why I would say, if we're doing this deeper work of yoga and Ayurveda, it needs to be done with Sangha. It is always recommended to be done in a group, because at that point where you start to unravel is the point that feels like there's no stability, right? You're in that bridge between, okay, so now I've noticed there's something, I am now questioning everything, and everything that I thought that was true might not be true. It can feel like really the neurons have been unhooked, but the next one hasn't come in yet, right? So having a strong intention is critical. Having support in it is critical. And then we can come back, and I like to do a little bit of anatomy, because anatomy is true. Like, we know these things exist. It's like, this is an iPhone, right? Nobody's questioning that. This is an iPhone. So you can see in this picture here, this is how food moves through a body. These are the body parts, the organs that help with food going into cellular tissue. We all have this, otherwise we wouldn't be alive. But we don't think about it. If we're thinking about how can we create a body that is at ease and nourished, we need to know the engine that brings that to us, right? So you can see here, we come from the mouth, and it's just basically this long kind of winding road, right, down through the stomach, right? So you have the esophagus here down through the stomach, and then you have the pancreas here, which is helping with insulin, and the liver. Huge part is the liver. And then it comes down, and you have the large intestine, the small intestine, and you have all this place. This is the place where it's like the process of it, right? So this is like mulching it up, and this is the processing part. And I wanted to talk about Agni. The whole diet industry is like so dinosaur, in my opinion, because they focused on food, right? They're focusing on, this is the healthy food, that's the not healthy food. It's nothing to do with the food, right? What is important is your digestion. Because the food is just the food. How your body processes the food is really the key. And the stomach has acid between these four guys here, the gallbladder, pancreas, stomach, and liver. They are the churners of the food, and they need to be hot, right? Because we're talking about like acid, bile. That's what creates the breakdown of the food for this section here to be processing it. So Agni is the Sanskrit word fire. Like we talk about fire in the belly, but it's more than that. It's the ability for the body to burn up, to consume. And like you do an experiment in the science lab and you want to get out toxins and get to the raw material, the alchemy, you have to put it under fire. It has to go through that fire process to burn off the waste. That's Agni. So it's not just fire, it's a fire that's a cleansing fire. And that is what is our health, how strong our Agni is. And that is different for each person. So the first thing is knowing your fire. Now, people who have a lot of air and space in their body type, or Vata, their Agni is not so strong, or it can be erratic. Pitta, those who have fire and water in their natural constitution, tend to have pretty strong Agni, a pretty strong burner, if you like. Those who are Kapha, water and earth, the fire is dimmer, right? So it's not about the food, it's about your Agni. It's like, imagine your belly is like farmer's soil, right? The farmer wants to make a nice garden or a farm. The soil has to be good, otherwise nothing's going to really come into fruition. So your belly, it needs to be hot. So it needs to have the enzymes in there. It needs to have a good mucus in the lining. And again, even if the farmer has good soil, but doesn't tend his farm well, it's going to not produce the optimal. So we have to have a little bit of respect and love to this little garden that we have, the fauna and flora within us. And a farmer is conscious of his soil, like he checks it every day. I'm here in California, right? It was interesting, they have rose bushes at the end of every vineyard. And I was speaking to my dad, I was like, why all the rose bushes? And he said to me, because they know if they check the rose bush and the rose bush at the end has, pests on it, they know that vine will have the pests on it too. So they don't need to check all the vineyards because they're massive. They can just check the roses, but they check the roses every day to check and see if there's a problem, if they've got any of these bugs. So in the same way, like if we want to be conscious, like we need to be checking in with our Agni, our fire, our belly, and then we know, we're ready to eat, we're not ready to eat. The fire's there, it's not there. So if you were to do your own Agni assessment, like how, if you imagine like you've got a raging fire, it's healthy, or it's kind of meh, or it comes and goes, like just intuitively, how would you say your Agni is? Like Agni assessment. So Agni in Sanskrit, it's not exactly translatable as hunger, but it's like you start to feel that fire and then you're eating. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But so many people don't do that. And if the fire isn't hot enough, I have a habit when I cook, I'm impatient. And I will often like not wait for the oil to be hot enough to put things in, or, it's like if I'm making a fried egg, I put the pan down, I put the egg in, and I know it's like, no, wait till the pan's hot enough. So in the same way, so a lot of us, we're eating based on a schedule that is not necessarily our belly schedule, it's workplace schedule, or family schedule, or whatever. There are many schedules that we have to adhere to, and the flames might not be ready for that food yet. So this comes back to eating in alignment with the body's daily rhythm. So this Agni that is right in here, and the temperature of the stomach's like 102 degrees. It's hot. This Agni is the key to, I would say, weight maintenance, to healthy tissues, right? Where there's not much waste. We want this fire to be hot. We want it to be efficient, that like not too hot, because that is indigestion and inflammation in the gut, but we want it to be hot enough. So it's the Goldilocks effect. And this area is related to the sun. Like literally, when the sun is highest in the sky around midday, the bile and the enzymes are, there's more of them. Towards the end of this workshop, we'll talk a little bit about how we might be not supporting the Agni, right? Because what this Agni, what it cannot deal with, becomes Ama. So when the fire can't burn everything up, and there's stuff it doesn't know how to deal with, it becomes toxin, right? And that gets dumped into the bowels, but it also gets dumped into a safe place. And the safe place is this adipose tissue. Adipose tissues are fat, basically. And it's usually put around places that are not going to be too much of a bother to organs. So the bum, thighs, your arms, face. In the worst case, around the belly, right? Because then it starts to be around the major organs. So the fire is going to be highest during the middle of the day. What does Agni feel like? Half the time we go to a restaurant because we've agreed to meet a friend. It's nothing to do with our, hunger cycle. How many times do we get to a restaurant? We're not even hungry, but we're eating because it happens. This is modern day life. So let's say you go there, you're actually hungry, and the first thing they do is serve you ice water. Right? Now your fire's out. We're gonna have a little fun experiment. And you'll need a piece of paper and pen as well. So we're going to take a moment to just do a body scan, an inner landscape scan with our consciousness. So you can find a comfortable seat. And when the organs when the spine is tall, that allows the organs to have more space, right? When the spine is hunched over, the organs are all like squeezed in the corner of the bed, right? So we want to have this lengthened spine, and then whatever feels comfortable, either having your eyes closed or casting your gaze inward. And you can imagine in your mind's eye, like these anatomy books, it's so two-dimensional, right? Inside your vault, inside your body is this huge system that is helping anything you bring into the body to become part of the body or to release from the body. So I'd like you just to have your attention on your lips. So place your attention on your upper and lower lips, like almost like when I call out the body part, I want you to magnify them. And just notice how it feels around the lip area. And then you have the teeth, like the gnashers behind the lips, so the softness of the lips, and then there's a balance. You have this strength and solidity of the teeth. And then behind the teeth, you have the tongue. Again, back to softness, but also strong. And then if you can imagine sliding a little bit, you could even take a little bit of saliva and just slide it back to the back of the tongue. So now you feel that piece of saliva and you feel the swallowing reaction. And you start to go into the root of the tongue. And now it's in your body, right? It's not in your mouth. You now have that piece of saliva, that piece of food into the esophagus, and you're now in the esophagus, into the throat. And it winds its way down past the collarbones. It's like another little gate here, and then over to the left side. So you can imagine this piece of saliva. You can even take another swallow, comes down under the breastplate and over to the left side into this little pouch that's the stomach. And so the stomach is the first place that the beginning of the food breakdown happens. And the stomach has a lining to it. It has enzymes, imagine it like a farmer's soil. It needs sun, it needs moisture. And it has like fauna, flora in it, things to break down, like a loamy soil. That is a happy tummy, a happy stomach. And then to the right side, you have the liver, and the liver is producing this bile, is kind of feeding that into the stomach to help break down the food. So these two organs, on the left side, the stomach, the right side, the liver, and the pancreas and the spleen also supporting those bigger organs. And then once that saliva has passed through there, it moves down into the small intestine. And the small intestine is super long because it's a processing machine. It's like a long factory journey. The walls of the intestine are porous, they allow the nutrients to come through them. Winding all the way down to the bottom of the body. And then there's like an upturn where now we're into waste product. And on the right side, you have the ascending colon. So it moves up, so against gravity, counter-gravitational. And then just kind of would be inside your hip socket. There's moves across, so it kind of rounds the bend to the transverse colon that goes all the way across from right side to left side. And then it drops down from the left side down the descending colon and back behind you into the bowel and the anus. So this is the full trajectory of the digestive system. So I'd like you just to take another piece of saliva and follow it through yourself. Like just imagine, kind of play a little bit with imagining its movement, with the journey every piece of food that you eat goes through. And just like you might scan your body for any pain, see if there's any place that feels a little sluggish or it feels super fiery. Just make that assessment. Towards the lower part of the body in the colon, we do not have any nerves, so we can't feel in the same way that we could feel, let's say, something in the throat. But we can feel pressure. And there is this kind of intuitive awareness, even though we don't have so much sensory awareness there. Notice if you're able even to feel like are your bowels full or empty. And then just let your eyes open and come back. So we just took a little tour down the digestive system, just and checking in, right? And I did it in a more in-depth way, but you could do this all the time. Like it's just a matter of just sitting quietly hard to do it if you're running around, but you can do it. So how's the belly fire? Is it strong? Is it low? Is it high? Out of 10 is Agni is ready to eat, right? Because it can also be too much. You can also have too much fire. 10 out of 10, Agni is ready to eat. 1 out of 10 is really low. Like if I do an evaluation, just doing that meditation, little body scan, I'm probably at like a 4, right? Maybe a 5.
I think it's probably 5-ish.
5-ish, okay?
Yeah.
Probably a 7 or 8.
You can see it like a gas on your, in a gas cooker, right? I'm at like a 5. So I'm not really feeling hungry, but I want to do this exercise. So I'm going to take a piece of fruit. So I have a plum. That's my piece of fruit. Even just holding this, I know my belly is starting to rumble, right? So I've slowed things down. And this is what I do, right? I'm constantly conscious and I'm constantly being the scientist. So just taking this out of the fridge and holding it. And I've noticed when I took it out of the fridge, it was cold and it wasn't like doing anything to my belly. But now I'm creating this connection between what's in my hand and this feeling here. And just holding this is starting to make a connection with this. And my belly's now starting to be like, maybe, yeah, maybe, plum, right? So slowing things down, holding things. Whatever your piece of fruit is, so I'm holding this, I'm just going to talk you through my process. I can actually feel like acid or like that burning feeling starting in my stomach. And the longer I'm holding it, my body's now starting to like ramp itself up. Like even my body's starting to feel more animated. That is Agni. It's that kind of like, right? That's hunger. And that's a good thing. But we don't want to let it get too crazy because that would be like a wildfire. So every piece of food that I'm going to choose, even if I'm in the supermarket, I can like hold it. Maybe I use my senses, like I add in some extra layers, like I could sense it, I can really look at it, I can appreciate it, I can think of it. And then now my mouth is salivating. Right now, all of this shows me my body is ready to digest this. This is not going to waste, this little plum guy, right? My mouth is salivated. It's like my teeth want to come out, like slowing it down and really noticing the body has so many cues that show us what it wants to eat. If we slow down and listen in, like the subtle body. So now I'm going to check in last time. Are you ready to eat the plum? My body's like, yes, let's go, so. And there we go. Right, immediately that fire, it's like, yep, we're getting it. Right, I chew the food and then I swallow. So we've done it with a piece of real fruit here. You can tune into your wisdom body, like your subtle body. And we're going to do this thing where you're going to get a feeling for yes or no. So my feeling was like, when I wanted this piece of fruit, my feeling was like, yeah, like that, right? Like it's a lit up feeling. You may experience the yes feeling, like go, green light, go. So I'm going to get you just to not close your eyes, keep your eyes open. If your body was to show you what it wanted to eat, what would that feel like in your physical body? And then just listen. And you might get images, and you might get feeling, and you might get movement feeling. So I can share mine when I do this. My body, like I get this image of my gut busting open, right? And it's a forward movement. If your body was to show you what it wanted to eat, how would it show you? And you can share. Any felt senses, any sense of that?
I'm thinking if you go to a buffet or a salad bar or whatever, you definitely have a reaction to what you see.
Right. And how would you know? Like, how would you? Well, your body's going to, in a buffet or whatever, your legs are going to take you.
Right.
Right. But so maybe it's like you have that, maybe that's your wisdom body sense. Like, my legs are going to take me. Like, you could imagine like the little movie in your mind. Like, I know my body wants to eat because my legs are going to take me. I want you to be very present. Right. So we're going to do a little thing, but you need to be able to know, because I'm going to give you some foods and you're going to ask your intuitive body, do I want this now? And you're going to say yes or no. So you're going to make a little list. But if you don't know yes or no, then you won't be able to differentiate. So like so. And at the top will be, one column will be yes and one column will be no. So yes, no, easy. Yes or no. Right. Would my body like to eat this now? Yes or no? And you just write down yes or no, check or cross. Right. So let's take out the mind. So close your eyes, because that easily gets rid of the mind. So take a nice deep breath in and exhale. And again, breathing in. Exhale. Last time, breathing in. Exhale. So I want you to imagine this wisdom body. And I'm going to say the first food item, and you're asking that wisdom body, would you like to eat this now? Grilled fish. Let it have a moment. And then don't think, like, maybe you feel like, oh yeah, my belly would open up for that, or my belly would be closed for that, or I'd want to walk towards that, or I wouldn't want to walk towards that, or my body feels expanded, or it feels contracted. And then just yes or no. And I'm not going to go through this, I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. And then clear that. Come back to the wisdom body. The next piece of food is guacamole. Would my body like guacamole? If you're not sure, leave it. Don't force it. Okay, and then clear that. Next food item that is in our etheric dinner plate is a boiled egg. Yes or no? Wisdom body. And some of these you might get a really strong feeling, sensing. You might be like, oh no. Right? And some of these maybe not so much. Okay, let's clear that. Next is peach. As you do this, you can get faster and faster at doing it. So again, it comes back to practice, like riding the bike. Maybe at the minute it's still a little, new. Okay, let's clear that. Next thing is green beans. And again, the question is not, do I like green beans? The question is, would my body like to eat green beans now? Next, apple. Next, baked potato. Okay, next is toast. And then next is cheese. And then the last one we're going to do, rice. Okay, so I'm not too interested in which ones you said yes or no to. What I'm more interested in is what your experience was doing that and what your experience was with the wisdom body.
I don't know if it was because you gave us the visual of the anatomy and the meditation part also. We did the meditation, then I finished eating the rest of the fruit. I noticed that I felt satisfied in like, wow, that was filling. Like I never associated eating fruit with being satisfying. To me, yeah, that's too healthy. I'm not going to get full eating fruit.
Right? There's a mental thought, fruit is not filling. That is not in the moment true for your actual body and the intuitive body. So there is disconnect, there's non-alignment. That is the key in the heart of this whole teaching and workshop,